And welcome once again. So much to go over, some old, some new. Who won the first Republican presidential debate? The nominee, who won? Some would say Trump won. Some would say Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm going to get his name right one of these days. I am. One of these days, I'm going to get his name right. Um, I've heard it pronounced right a few times, so I should have this down by now. But that is one of the key things that I saw. Then we have a quote from RFK Jr. who comments on it. So there's some good comments from Trump about this, and then there's some good comments from RFK about it. And I have those pulled up on my Facebook, so I can screen share those while I read them. They were emails that were sent. So let me see if I have those. Yeah, it looks like I do have that one. I have the Trump one. Um, yes. Okay. So that should be good to go. I'll get the Trump one kind of queued up. Yes. Very good. Very good. Very good. All right. Just testing it out there. So, where to begin? Kind of a loss here. Where to begin? I'm going to begin with something from July 29th, 2023. This was in Erie, Pennsylvania, when President Trump was speaking. And he promised that on day one, he will, after a crushing victory on November 5th, 2024, quote, on day one of my new administration, I will seal the border. And by the way, we want people to come in, but we want them to come in legally. Very important. They need to come in legally. He also says, I will save the economy, I will purge the deep state, and I will prevent World War III, which is where we're headed. He said he likes Ramaswamy. I'm going to look up his name to get it right. He's leading others in some polls, and Trump explains because he says Trump has been a great president. I like guys that I'm running against that say I've been a great president, so vote for him. Says when this battle is over, I'll be back in the White House, and the Bidens will have to justify all of the corruption that they've done. They've done everything they can to ruin this election, just like they ruined the last. And look at what happened to our country. They tried to do damage right from that day. I came down the escalator. They did damage before your very eyes. So there were two big events that happened on August 23rd. You had President Trump on Twitter, Tucker Carlson, and the first Republican presidential debate. Just a few notes that I have from that debate was that Mike Pence looked like Hillary Clinton. He acted like Hillary Clinton in 2016 with it was this talking point. We are going to do this. It was just a total cliche of Clinton. Vivek looks like President Trump's future vice president. That's the feeling that I got, that that guy could be Donald Trump's future vice president. We'll see. Ron DeSantis just looks like a cheap Trump ripoff. I mean, even some of the same lines, some of the same quotes Ron DeSantis was using were direct. You could tell were directly from Clinton from Trump's playbook, things that President Trump has directly said. So take that for what it's worth. That's pretty interesting there. During the debate, Trump wanted to quote set the record straight, and here's what he says. So I'm going to actually pull that one up since I do have that shared here, and pull that up on screen and go through it. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, well, big enough. That's also what she said. This is what President Trump said about the debate. Let's check. Here's what he says. Patriot. This is from an email. So if you are subscribed to Donald J. Trump, you receive emails just like this one that I have up here. Here's what he says. Patriot. As you read this email, disloyal Republicans, rhinos, as we like to call them, are dishonestly attacking yours truly in tonight's GOP debate and are playing right into Crooked Joe's hands. Make no mistake, Biden is grinning from ear to ear right now, watching as my opponents divert time and energy away from attacking him to instead try and stop our movement. But rather than wipe the floor tonight with a handful of rhinos while we're leading in every poll, I'm spending my time on the one and only real mission: firing Crooked Joe and saving America. I promise you that we'd wrap up this primary as quickly as humanly possible so that we can shift 100% of our focus to beating Crooked Joe. And just as I always have, I will make good on that promise. If you're struggling right now due to the crooks, thugs, and fools currently running our country, then please don't even think about donating. Very soon we will win back the White House and our country will come back roaring. Don't you worry. It's like it skipped over one. He says, every minute of every dollar our opponents waste attacking me is time and resources not spent going after Biden, who is actively attempting to jail his chief political rival for life, for a third world dictator. Even as I am set to be unjustly arrested tomorrow as an innocent man, some rhinos would still rather try to further their own political ambitions and stand up to Crooked Joe and the deep state. In fact, the deep state approved candidate backed by the rhino special interests, who are spending $370 million to try to stop us, has even cheered on the witch hunts and parroted lines from the Democrats defending these attempts to throw me in prison for hundreds of years. But rest assured, Patriot, I will never play into Crooked Joe's hands like these fools. There's the man right there. So that is President Trump. That's what he said about the debate. Then RFK has also made a comment. But before I get to that, I do want to play this clip that I did have up. That is President Trump speaking right after the fourth indictment in 5 months, right after he surrendered himself to Fulton County. I mean, Fulton County, well, enough said. It's Fulton County. All right. So, Georgia will be on your mind. It'll be on a lot of our minds for a long time to come.
Thank you very much for being here. I really believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others.
John Kerry.
When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning. And this is one instance, but you have 3 other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here. We did nothing wrong at all. And we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think it's very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you.
That was great. Came out for about 1 minute, said his piece, and then just left it all. Let that mic drop. But wasn't in there.
Trump reveals who won the first GOP debate. Former President Donald Trump revealed who he believed won the first GOP presidential debate on Wednesday night. Tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy effusively praised the former president in the first debate, coming about an hour after it started. "I'll just speak the truth. President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century," Mr. Ramaswamy said as the crowd cheered. "Your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible," he told former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, "if your campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man," referring to President Trump. On Truth Social, the former president posted a clip of Mr. Ramaswamy's comment and wrote, "This answer gave Vivek Ramaswamy a big win in the debate because of a thing called truth. Thank you, Vivek." Mr. Ramaswamy's defense of the former president came in response to an attack from Mr. Christie on the debate stage. Mr. Christie had said that someone's got to stop normalizing this conduct. The conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States. Later, Mr. Ramaswamy posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, that if folks at home want to watch a bunch of people blindly bash Trump, they can just flip the channel and watch MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC, I'm running for president of the United States. The former president opted out of the debate and instead held a pre-recorded interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, where the two discussed a range of topics. As of Friday morning, the Carlson-Trump interview, which was posted on X, had generated more than 250 million impressions. Do I sit there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it's going to be, and get harassed by people that shouldn't even be running for president? Should I be doing that at a network that isn't particularly friendly to me? President Trump said. After debate polls showed that Mr. Ramaswamy was viewed as one of the top performing candidates during the event, often fielding attacks from several candidates. He also promoted what some have described as a Trump-like agenda, and was one of the few candidates to openly criticize the multiple Trump indictments. Mr. Ramaswamy was also the first GOP candidate to raise his hand when asked if he would support President Trump as the party's nominee even if he is convicted on the charges that he's facing.
That I like too, and that was clear. And if you watch the Republican candidates debate, and if you haven't, it should be up somewhere. Hopefully, it's up on YouTube somewhere. If not, I'm sure it will end up popping up. But you can see they ask this question. First hand that goes up, Ramaswamy, and boom, as it goes around. Everybody's hand slowly goes up. Chris Christie's hand in the end kind of goes up like this. But that guy is great. I want to finish this article. By the way, this article is from the Epoch Times, and you can always look at their articles. Their articles, they can be read free if you are on Truth Social. So any Epoch Times articles on Truth Social, you are able to read those for free. That's how I got this one.
Ultimately, all of the candidates except for former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson raised their hands. Join me in making a commitment that one day you would pardon Donald Trump, Mr. Ramaswamy told former Vice President Mike.
I love that. That was a great one. That was a great moment that he would pardon President Trump. And see, we knew that was going to happen. Ramaswamy. Let me remember to get that right. Ramaswamy, Vivek Ramaswamy. That guy has a bright future in politics. Absolutely no doubt. It was interesting that Chris Christie at one point actually compared Ramaswamy to Barack Obama, because I'm sure some of us have been privately kind of thinking the same thing. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? The difference is Ramaswamy is a self-made person, right? And Barack Obama is all manufactured, no doubt, in my mind. But great article. Let me just go back to it. Don't need my face there in the corner. Let's finish this.
Mike Pence at one point. It appeared that in President Trump's absence, several of the candidates appeared to go after him, and he spent a significant amount of time in the spotlight. At one point, he called the other candidates super PAC puppets and claimed that he was the only one on the stage that isn't bought and paid for.
When Ramaswamy said that, when he said that he was the only one that isn't bought and paid for, man, he triggered people, and he's good at that the same way that Trump is really good at that. Ramaswamy, by the way, if you don't know, if you have not watched his interview with Tucker Carlson, it's a big focus on 9/11. So not only would you have a vice president who had questions about 9/11, but you would have a vice president who may actually do something and may actually start some investigation. Because as we know, the vice president, it's kind of like a lame duck thing, but so he's got time to do something. And I don't think he's just going to be like Pence, staring at a wall for 4 years, waiting for his turn. I think Ramaswamy can really be a powerful voice. whether he's a vice president or whether he finds his way into Trump's cabinet, I believe he will. I believe he will somehow, some way, he will find his way into Trump's cabinet in 2024.
He also sparred with other candidates and moderators about whether the United States should provide more funding to Ukraine and Israel. Ukraine is not a priority for the United States of America, he said. That drew a response from former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, who asserted, "You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows." But President Trump's debate comment came hours before he was booked into the Fulton County Jail on multiple charges. His mugshot was taken and was posted across nearly every U.S. media outlet. About an hour later, the former president used the mugshot to make his very first post on X, or Twitter, in more than 2 years. It's not clear if he will continue to use the platform often, as he has previously said he would continue to use his Truth Social.
Yep.
President Trump has 86.6 million followers on what is now known as X, dwarfing his rivals in the 2024 race. He returned to Facebook in March, posting, "I'm back," weeks after his personal account there was reactivated. President Trump was released on $200,000 bond and headed back to the airport for his return flight home to New Jersey, flashing a thumbs up through the window of his sport utility vehicle as his motorcade left. Unrepentant but subdued after the brief jail visit, he again insisted that he did nothing wrong and called the case accusing him of subverting election results a travesty of justice. The Associated Press contributed to this report.
Did nothing wrong. It's hard to argue with that. And it is interesting that he is now back up on Twitter, that he posted that. Just like how when he came back to YouTube, let's see if I could pull that one up here. But he posted this. Let's see. Very short clip, but 10 seconds, 11 seconds. This guy's too much, man. It's heating up, and things are just going to get hotter here. But about 5 months ago, he came back to YouTube.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business. Complicated.
And that was it. And then since then, he's posted some other videos. The latest one is the listless vessel. So this is a good one. So I do believe I'm going to play this one.
If all we are is listless vessels that's just supposed to follow, whatever happens to come down the pike on Truth Social every morning, that's not going to be a durable movement.
Hi, Governor DeSantis.
Mr. DeSantis.
Hey, Governor DeSantis.
Hey, DeSantis.
Hey, DeSantis. Ron DeSantis. Governor DeSantis.
Hi, Governor DeSantis.
I'm Michael from South Carolina.
My name is Sharon.
My name's Deanna.
Kansas. West Virginia.
Debbie, a Georgia grandmother.
I'm Cher.
This is Dave in Vermont.
We're from Rockwood, Maine.
Sherry from the state of Hawaii.
I've been a pastor in Franklin County, Ohio for over 15 years.
I'm a U.S. Navy veteran.
I'm a firefighter and a veteran. I've been in law enforcement for over 30 years.
I'm a retired nurse in Boone County, Iowa.
A business owner from South Carolina, a mother of 2.
Daughter of a World War II hero. Mother of a first responder.
And I am definitely not a listless vessel.
I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I am not a listless vessel.
I support Donald Trump because he's great for small business and agriculture in Oregon.
Because in 2016, he showed us what an America First presidency looks like.
Secure borders, strong military, law and order.
He stands for life. He supports Christian values.
Because there's no one else running that would take the slings and arrows for me as he has.
He will lead and put the American people first.
He'll end the scourge of human trafficking and defend the dignity of human life.
He has been our stellar commander-in-chief.
He stands for protecting our children.
Because I know that he can keep his promises.
His priority is America first.
And make America great again.
I'm pretty sure that doesn't make Trump supporters listless vessels.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
Ron DeSantis. I'm not just a listless vessel.
Where's America?
We're Americans.
I'm a mama bear with 6 kids.
I'm not a listless vessel.
I am not a listless vessel.
I'm not a listless vessel.
I am not a
listless vessel.
Listless means lacking energy or enthusiasm. Have you ever been to a Trump event?
I was never deplorable, and I am certainly not a listless vessel.
I am not a listless vessel.
I'm not a listless vessel. I'm not a listless vessel.
I am not a listless vessel.
I'm not a listless vessel.
I am not a listless vessel.
I'm 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 not a listless vessel.
We are not a listless vessel.
I am not.
I am not a listless vessel.
I'm not a listless vessel.
I'm not
I'm not a listless vessel.
Man, we're not
I'm not a listless vessel. I'm not a listless vessel.
DeSantis, we are not listless vessels. We are patriots that love this country, and we voted for Trump in 2020, and we're going to vote for him again in 2024.
There you go. And I agree. I'm all in for that. That was beautiful. It's great. And again, it's Ron DeSantis, man. He's making so many calculated moves, but they're not good moves. These are moves. They're just not good moves. I don't know. Who is Ron DeSantis' campaign manager? I'd love to know that. Who is steering him in this direction here? Who thought that this would be a good idea to run at this point when Florida needs him so badly? The country doesn't. The country the position is filled, as they say in Mary Poppins. The position has been filled. So, yeah. So take that for what it's worth. But that is the latest video on Donald J. Trump on YouTube, and it's good stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff there. So there was another thing. I wanted to see if I could play here. So here it is. This is good. This is good. I'm going to play this for a few minutes. And of course, if anybody wants to join me at any time, people are always welcome. Always welcome. All is welcome. Okay, let's share this. People can see it. This is why it's why you need two screens here. I need to get my second screen going.
President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact. And
True.
honest to God, your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if
True that.
Want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States.
That was Vivek Ramaswamy going after former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's campaign strategy during last night's debate. Christie attacking Ramaswamy's, quote, amateur tendencies, comparing him to former President Obama. Watch this.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here. And the last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, "What's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here?" was Barack Obama. And I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on stage tonight.
Whoa.
All right, joining me now is former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins. Doug, good morning. Lots to talk about here. I think the biggest question really is, did anybody on the stage, in your opinion, we're going to get to that Chris Christie comment, really move the needle enough to jump in the polls when it comes to the former president, Donald Trump, who still has the big lead?
Well, good morning, Cheryl, and good morning, everybody. Look, I don't think they probably moved a lot. There'll be some movement here, but I think I heard it earlier, and I think, they mentioned an earlier interview Todd had talked about, which everybody said did sort of as expected. I think the interesting part here for me, though, is when you look at the details of this debate, I think whether it was lack of specifics or everybody else, folks, let's just get over it. I mean, lack of specifics in a minute and a half answer. Somebody who's done many of these debates, there's only so much you can get in, and they're all told, here's what you need to do. I think the interesting part for me, though, was if I was Ron DeSantis this morning, no matter what I said and how I did it, Vivek Ramaswamy took the arrows. He also took the time. He also got mentioned enough. If you're some of the other candidates on the stage, it tells me that they believe that Vivek actually was the more challengeable candidate at this point, and they went after him. So it was a twofold aspect. Everybody thought DeSantis would get attacked. He really didn't get attacked at all. He sort of performed as he normally does. But, the question from the other candidates was, why go after Vivek? It was an easier target, and everybody else just sort of got to play their own standard campaign stump speech.
Well, you heard that soundbite that we played going into you, and you looked at, Chris Christie. I mean, the guy likes to throw punches, and his first victim was Vivek Ramaswamy, in particular, going after him for that comparing himself to Barack Obama, kind of stealing that line. That was one issue, the ChatGPT line that came and hit Ramaswamy. I mean, but did any of that really land? And I think my bigger question here is there something in the internal polls right now, Doug, that we're not seeing, that the candidates on that stage last night are seeing, that tells them that Vivek Ramaswamy is a bigger threat than we realize to them?
I'm probably in the polls. I mean, they're seeing a guy who has absolutely zero name ID 6 months ago. Now is, second place in some of the national polls, third place. But I think if you really wanted to know where the interest in the attacks on Vivek came from, listen to the crowd. Just listen to the crowd last night when Christie did attack him. They were booing. Many of them were very hostile toward the attacks. Because, look, I think this also puts a different spotlight on Vivek. He's actually now has to go out and talk about his stance on Israel, his stance on Ukraine. These are things that people may not have seen before, but now see it on the very front stage. And now he's going to have to talk about it. But they like the way he talks. They like the way he related. And when we talked about economy, and I heard this earlier on what y'all were talking about, Bidenomics, nobody knows what Bidenomics is. Nobody cares what Bidenomics is because they don't like Joe Biden, so they don't like Bidenomics. They just know that it's hard on them every day buying the stuff they need. When's a candidate going to sit there and just say, is Tim Scott tried?
I was going to cut
Others
in.
tried, but instead of giving here's my 5-point plan. Hey, look, I know you're suffering. Here's what we got to do. The spending's bad, and go at it from that angle. And he's doing that. The others sort of played the normal role, it seemed like last night, which is normal for these debates.
Well, DeSantis did come out and talk about this. And I thought this was interesting, when it came to Bidenomics and reversing Bidenomics in the country. And he did say we cannot succeed as a country if you're working hard, but you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings.
Yeah, but and again, I'm glad he's went after it. But again, what is the specific there? You just told us everything we already know. And I think that's what comes out of debates sometimes. So, yeah, we know that the prices are high. We know that energy price, and it's Bidenomics, and we'll take a hit at Hunter Biden. All perfect debate techniques to make a 5-minute showing or a 30-second hit. The question became, though, is they'll turn around, and so people who are going through every day say, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that we're going to actually, produce more energy here so that our gas prices will come down, as opposed to a president who just cut production in the United States when gas prices are already higher? It's got to be a little bit more specific and be aimed at the people on what they have. Don't tell them what they already know. Tell them this is what we understand, but here's how we can actually fix it. Use a 30-second soundbite for one good point instead of a 45-second soundbite for a little bit of everything.
Well, you know what, Doug? I'll tell you what, that might be Ramaswamy then, because he did say when it came to energy policy, I would unlock American energy, drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear, put people back to work and not pay them to be at home anymore.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, Cheryl. I mean, think about this. People don't want to hear what, we're having an energy crisis. We're having gas prices go up. You're pushed toward electric vehicles and everything. Yet we have a grid that can't sustain the electric progression that we're going with vehicles. And you're not dealing with stuff like nuclear. You're not dealing with the other issues of an all-encompassing energy plan. I think that would be an area where people could actually look at that and say, hey, this is at least a vision I have not heard before. But I think this is where it's going to be good. At the end of the night, though, Donald Trump, was the probably the unspoken winner here, because it made everybody else have to fight each other, while Donald Trump was still leading massively in the polls and not having to, not being engaging here. And who came out, sort of the second place here? We'll just have to see how the polls shake out. I mean, there's others. Haley did okay. There's others who had their moments. But the question is, was there a moment that said, hey, here's my alternative to Donald Trump in these polling?
All right. Doug Collins, thank you so much for getting up so early. Appreciate it, Doug. It's good to see you.
Okay.
All right.
Good to see you too. Take care.
All right. We'll be.
Have you considered going solar in Idaho? But
That's a good one. Wanted to play that. Gonna go look for some more clips from both Trump and Kennedy. But I did want to, now that we're on that topic, we should probably look at the response from RFK Jr. about the debates. This is an interesting response, and pretty much everything this guy does pretty interesting to me. So I'm going to try to highlight this a little bit better if I can. Full screen, does that matter? No, it doesn't help. Doesn't help. Okay, so this is from August 24th. This is what RFK Jr. had to say about the first primary debate. This is the first primary debate. Now, you have to remember, too, there is not going to be a debate on the Democratic side. It's not going to happen, according to the DNC. Now, the DNC and the RNC they both are looking the same in so many different ways because of how they are treating the two top candidates, the two most popular candidates that we're ever going to have in our lifetime, President Donald J. Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. These are two very popular candidates among the people, and they're both being censored. They're both being attacked. They're both facing an uphill battle from their own party leadership. The DNC has already said there will be no DNC debates. That doesn't mean that a debate can't happen, because like RFK Jr. said, this election is going to be decided by podcasts. It's going to be decided by town halls. That's what it's going to be decided by, not by these deep debates. The debates are secondary. The debates are a great way for the candidates to share their thoughts and their views and to debate against the other candidates. And then to let the people decide, right? There's no winners, there's no losers. Everybody we all watch the same show. And I may think one person did better. You may think, this other person did better too. But nothing is stopping a debate between RFK and Donald J. Trump right now. The only thing that is stopping it is somebody has not made that happen. You would need both of these candidates to give the go-ahead and have a debate. Have 3 debates. Because this is what the people want. That's what we want. So let's bypass what the DNC is doing. Let's bypass what the RNC is doing. And I guess at least the RNC they're putting on deep debates, but they're making people sign this waiver. They wanted Trump and everybody else to sign this waiver, this pledge, right? This pledge to beat Joe Biden. And it's like, well, if you want to beat Joe Biden, let's get a candidate who can beat Joe Biden, who has already beaten Joe Biden. And that is Donald J. Trump. We already have him. Now, I also believe that RFK Jr. can beat Joe Biden too. And I think the polls continually show that. And I don't believe in polls. I don't go with polls. It's all math. It's science and math, so I can't go there. But it's speculation. It's there's a lot of theory involved in it. It is not accurate to how the American people think. Obviously not. When you have very few people showing up for anything that Biden does, and you have RFK Jr.'s crowds are building, and not just building with the same type of crowd either. RFK is building with libertarians, with Republicans, with Democrats, with undecided voters, with just regular people that may not even be eligible to vote. The dude is in Compton, leading kids on a hike, leading a basketball tournament. He's out there the way that President Trump can't be out there, just for safety reasons. And you think about RFK Jr.'s past, you're like, well, there's some safety reasons there too. So for RFK Jr. to not get a Secret Service detail is still very, very frustrating. It's very frustrating for a lot of people. I'm definitely sure of that. But aside from that, what I want to talk about here is RFK Jr.'s response to the first presidential debate, primary debate. And remember, the primaries will actually get to vote. The primary should start in March of 2024. Each state will be a little bit different. It's going to be chaos, complete chaos during that time. So We're just prepping for that. But this is what RFK Jr. has to say about that debate. This is one day after the debate happened. He says, the Republican debate last night was out of sync with the mood of the country. Now, he talks about this song, Richmond, North of Richmond. And he says the candidates could have talked about those things. They could have talked about the low wages. They could have talked about the degraded food supply, the elite corruption, obesity, homelessness, despair, et cetera, et cetera. They could have talked about these things, but they said nothing about the desperation and hardship working people face in this country. They said nothing about wages, housing costs, food costs, childcare costs, and medical costs, and what we can do about it. They said nothing about the systematic corruption that enriches corporations and the elites as swaths of the former middle class fall into poverty. Let me go back, because instead, they recycled Reagan-era cliches about cutting spending, being tough on drugs, crime, China, etc., and ending abortion. They were obsessed with America's adversaries, but blind to how our policies have been deliberately constructed to create adversaries, and enrich the defense industry while bankrupting the nation. They were obsessed with closing the border, which I agree with, but have no proposals to expand legal immigration or address the conditions that drive migration. Again, in large part, that is U.S. policy. This goes back to John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where a lot of things that are happening in these other countries and why they want to come here is because we're tearing up those other countries. And it's crazy. The irony, when you think about it, we are terrorizing these other countries, and all these people want to come to the country that's terrorizing their country. The irony is just crazy. RFK continues, they obsessed about cutting spending, except defense. They want more of that, but offer no innovative proposals to address the decay of our infrastructure, wages, and environment. Our nation deserves better than posturing and bickering, masquerading as debate. Instead of arguing, we can tap into the swelling popular will to turn this country around. Oliver Anthony has tapped into something that can unify our country. Nearly everyone wants to reverse our decline, to end the corruption, to rebuild from the inside. Let's talk about how to do that. Which is why I sat down with a true ally of the America First movement. Oh, that's a different one. Sorry. I don't know why they put them kind of out of order. So I guess that's it. I guess that's all it was there. But, it's very, very powerful and always good to hear from RFK Jr., to hear his thoughts. And I wanted to really share his thoughts about this because his thoughts mean a lot to me on this particular topic, on all of these topics that we're talking about. So, see if there's anything else that I have. Got some notes on Tucker Carlson. Let's see. Just looking at some of my other notes from this. Okay, so eventually the debate turned to Trump and the quote-unquote pledge. Vivek raised his hand first, kept it up last. That's an interesting too. They always say he was the first to raise his hand, but kept it up last when they asked if he would support Trump as the president. Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm going to get that right. Ramaswamy. He was the first and the last. He kept his hand up the whole time when asked if he would support Trump if Trump became the presidential nominee, even though Trump has not signed this quote-unquote pledge, this BS pledge. Vivek gets cheered. Chris Christie gets booed because Christie was he was literally the last person to raise his hand. He's limp-wristed like this, kind of, and then kind of like, I don't know, am I raising my hand or not? He was still wasn't sure, but he got booed on that. And Vivek, he backed Trump and stood up for Trump pretty much throughout the whole thing. And they said it cannot indict its political opponents. Christie is almost booed out of the building. Yeah, Christie is pretty much almost booed out of the building for his comments on that. That's some of the clips that you may have seen there. Most of the candidates believe Pence. Most of the candidates believe Pence did the right thing by certifying the 2020 election. Not good. Nikki Haley calls Trump the most disliked politician. Can you believe that? The most disliked politician. Donald Trump, really? He's the most disliked. You know who he's the most disliked politician by? By the most disliked politicians. The politicians that we generally dislike the most are the ones who dislike President Trump on both sides. The Bushes, the Clintons, Kissinger. How far back do you want to go? Barack Obama. They all dislike Trump. So Nikki Haley may be right that he's the most disliked politician, but not amongst the people. The people love President Trump. So she's way out of touch there. Vivek then challenges Pence to commit to pardoning Trump. And Pence won't commit to a pardon. Pence is like, well, how do you know it's even going to go that far? So that was a good comeback by Pence there, I thought. They talk about the war funding on Ukraine. Vivek will not supply funding. DeSantis was a bit wishy-washy on it. Let's see. Most of the candidates seem to support Ukraine. DeSantis supports volunteering for service, not forcing people into service. None of the Republican candidates recognize RFK is creeping up behind Joe Biden. I had to make that note because he is. He definitely is. And it's very difficult for me to understand why these other candidates do not see that. Or maybe they do and they just don't want to publicly talk about it. We're talking about a Kennedy here. Got to take that seriously. Not just any Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Even the mantra by the RNC, quote, beat Joe Biden, discounts RFK's possibility of beating Joe Biden. Because, hey, if they want to beat Joe Biden, you have a guy on the other side who can beat Joe Biden before he even steps out of the gate, before he even makes it to the gate, as Trump has talked about and will talk about on Tucker Carlson. Trump does not even think that Biden will be the nominee. He's pretty much saying that. And I've heard other Republican House representatives say that too, that they don't even think Biden is going to make it as the nominee. The only other viable person is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now the establishment, the DNC, probably wants somebody else. I think that's clear. They probably do not want Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but that's their best shot. If they want to get Biden out, that's the only guy who can do it. It's not going to be Gavin Newsom. It's not going to be Kamala Harris. It can only be Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's the only one. Because he's the only one who can break that barrier, break that glass ceiling that the DNC, that these established people, people who think that they control the parties, both parties. RFK can break through that glass ceiling. He can do it pretty easily. Trump beat Biden in 2020, and RFK can beat Biden in 2024 primaries. That's the way I see it. That's my opinion. That's all it is. Then, and only then, will the greatest showdown in American politics take place. Trump and Kennedy, Kennedy and Trump. Two things good for America. Great for this country. Great for the greatest nation on God's green earth. With that said, I am going to go back and let's play. Got a few other clips I did want to play so I can find it. Where are you? Okay, going to play this one. It's about a 5-minute. It's a good one. Let's be honest, they're all good. It's all good.
All right, now let's turn to government censorship. What's going on with this government censorship?
2 attorney generals brought a case against the censorship by the White House. One of the things that it says in this lawsuit is that I was the first one that was censored by the Biden White House. Biden came in on January 21st, 2021. On the 23rd, White House officials contacted Facebook and asked them to take my account down. And I lost my Instagram account, which is part of Facebook, 3 weeks later, 900,000 followers. There was no misinformation on that account. Every posting that I made was cited to a peer-reviewed publication or a government database. They had to invent a new word called malinformation. Malinformation is, and this is in the judge's decision, is information that is factually correct, but it is inconvenient or disapproved by the government. Many of the things that they were censoring were things that had nothing to do with COVID. They were censoring Hunter Biden's laptop. At one point, they were asked to censor a parody of the president.
If elected president, what do you do or not do about any of these things?
I will immediately, the first day in office, order an end to all attempts by federal agents and federal agencies to censor the speech of Americans. Political speech shouldn't be censored. The government should not be able to propagandize the American people. That was the law until 2016, and that needs to be withdrawn. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now.
Is fear itself the biggest issue facing America right now?
I don't know if it's the biggest issue, but it has become weaponized by elements within the technocracy and in the corporate kleptocracy to engineer compliance of Americans with things that most people would not put up with under normal circumstances. It's like Americans know innately that the government is not supposed to censor us, and yet we put up with it. It's been recognized forever that fear is a governing tool, particularly for totalitarian elements. If you manipulate them with fear, people will choose security over constitutional rights. Franklin Roosevelt said to people, the biggest fear is fear itself. If we allow ourselves to be manipulated by fear, we will lose everything that we value.
Do you ever get scared that these government agencies, these pharmaceutical companies are going to try to physically harm you or the people that you care about?
I don't get scared of that. And I don't worry about it, but I'm aware of that danger. I feel like this is my country and I have a duty to fight that kind of stuff. There was a generation in this country in 1776 that had put their lives on the line. A lot of them died and put their fortunes on the line and their property and their reputations, their livelihood, in order to give us the constitutional rights that we now take for granted. And in 1 year, we saw so many of those constitutional rights just eviscerated. And we have to be willing to make the same kind of sacrifices they did. There's a lot worse things to me than dying. And one of those is having my kids grow up in America where they do not have the constitutional rights that I grew up with. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now. We're seeing this merger of state and corporate power where the companies and industries that are being regulated are capturing the agencies that are supposed to regulate them and basically turning them into predatory organisms against the American people and instruments for essentially strip mining our assets, for commoditizing our people, for selling poisonous products and making a lot of money on it. And that's happening in all of the agencies. USDA, the Department of Agriculture, agribusiness has weaponized that agency to destroy the small farmer and destroy good food in this country. Cargill and Monsanto and Bo Pilgrim and Frank Perdue and John Tyson are running that agency, and they're not running it for the benefit of the American people. FDA gets 50% of its budget from pharmaceutical companies. NIH and NIH individual scientists are allowed to collect royalties, pharmaceutical products that they regulated and developed. The regulatory function has been subsumed by the mercantile ambitions of the agency itself and individuals who are supposed to be protecting us. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now. One of the principal themes of my campaign is ending the corrupt merger of state and corporate power, which has turned many of the regulatory agencies into predators against the American public and against the principles of our country. I'll just give you a quick example. The USDA was created to foster and protect family farmers in this country and to protect the integrity of our food supply. The USDA is now the instrument for the monopoly takeover of American farming by these large corporations. It's a threat not only to the middle class, to our food supply, our food safety, but also ultimately democracy. How do you unravel corporate capture at these agencies? I know how to do it. I know how to reorganize those agencies to end the revolving doors, to end these financial entanglements with the industries they're supposed to regulate. And in many cases, I know the specific individuals in those agencies who need to be moved out. And that's why I'm in better shape than anybody else to get the kind of reforms that the American people want. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now.
Excellent.
We have so much. You just opened up so many avenues right now. But
Excellent. Oh, this is pretty good. This is
just to clean up, tie up the Fox debates, and you'll decide next week. What is there?
Are we announcing that?
Yeah, it's already decided. So let me just go back. Some good things that happened. I mean, there's just so much happening, but some very interesting things. And I do want to go through and see what the latest is on Kennedy24.com, DonaldJTrump.com, on Twitter, and on Truth Social. But before we get to that, I did want to spend a minute or two on Tucker Carlson and just quickly go over some of the things that happened on Tucker Carlson, where Donald Trump was there talking on Tucker Carlson. Tucker asked why Trump isn't at the debates. This pretty much starts off the whole thing. And then they get into that and they talk about why Tucker was removed from Fox News. And Trump says that was a bad move. And Trump has actually turned a lot against Fox News, as he's felt like they've turned against him. Now, he still has, I mean, it still seems like the clips that I see still seem very pro-Trump. So there must be a lot of things happening in the background. I'm not sure. Trump calls Asa Hutchinson weak and pathetic. He's nasty and always has been. He calls him boring too. Jeffrey Epstein is brought up during the interview that Trump did with Tucker Carlson. It's an awesome interview. Over 250 million views. Probably now, who knows? We'll go check it, but it's probably at 200. I mean, that thing is going to hit 300 at some point. But all of Tucker's shows do really, really well. That's where you want to be. So they talk about Jeffrey Epstein. He was killed, Tucker says, of Epstein. Tucker Carlson blatantly says he was killed. He did not commit suicide here. And suicides, we could go on and on about the suicide, all these different suicides. Trump says we're being attacked by quote unquote sick people who quote unquote hate our country. And they talk about the 2020 votes. We did much better than in 2016. That's a fact. And he says they used COVID for fraud, for election interference. COVID was a big part of that. Definitely a big part of that. And the timing was very interesting, wasn't it now? This was the thing, and I made a 20-minute clip about the similarities, or where President Trump and RFK Jr. actually talk about each other, and I may end this stream with that. And I got like 3 channels here because one has 1 strike, one has almost 3 strikes. So, but I will find that and play that because I think that there's some great clips in there. We could spend a whole show on that. But regarding Joe Biden, here's what President Trump says. I don't think he's going to make it to the gate, but you never know. And that was interesting because what is he talking about? What does he mean? He doesn't think Biden is going to make it to the gate. What is the gate? Is the gate the nominee? Is the gate the presidency? And so to me, it's not really clear what he's talking about, but it really sounds like President Trump doesn't even think Joe Biden is going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. And this opens up a can of worms. Donald Trump never specifically mentions RFK Jr., but this guy is a very smart gentleman, a very smart businessman. He's got to know what we're all thinking here about RFK Jr. Because if it isn't Biden, if they're not riding with Biden, it's got to be RFK to me. It's got to be RFK all day. Trump also says, I think, quote, I think he's worse mentally than he is physically. And physically, he's not exactly a triathlon athlete of any kind, or any kind of athlete. You look at him, he can't walk up to a helicopter. That's where I asked, was President Trump talking about Biden's chances of winning the Democratic nomination? Does President Trump think someone else, someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., will defeat Biden in the DNC primaries? Trump goes on, this is not a president of the United States future. I think they probably have some kind of primary and other people will get involved. But they've already said that they won't have a primary. Trump thinks at the DNC they'll have some kind of a primary and other people will get involved. That's pretty interesting. And Tucker Carlson brings up Gavin Newsom. And Trump says, yeah, it could be. And he's leaving the door open for possibilities. It could be him. It could be somebody else. That's what he says. Quote, it could be him, talking about Gavin Newsom. Then he says, it could be somebody else, end quote. We all know who the somebody else is. And for some reason, the elephant in the room doesn't want to address the donkey. The donkey of the DNC, RFK Jr., the one man who could actually beat Biden in the primaries, and a big sigh of relief will be heard around the world for a lot of people, I think, when RFK Jr. defeats Joe Biden. Then they talk about Mike Wallace, Chris Wallace. So those are probably the only things related to this. But I mean, it's a very excellent interview with Tucker. I have way too much on that. So I think that's probably a good place to end this part. And then we'll come back later on and talk more about this. God bless you all. Thank you all. Until next time, stay safe, be well, be good. Remember, Jesus loves you.